Welcome to this Blender to DAZ Studio tutorial. Let's start with the environment. Using the export scene settings, we can export the HDRI map from Blender to DAZ. Also, to rotate the map in Blender, for example the x-axis, we must deselect object and animation settings and only include the environment in the scene settings. We can then click on Export All, and we will see the rotation is now reflected in the dome orientation X in DAZ Studio. The face groups function is used to manage subgroups of polygons in every 3D application. Our Blender to DAZ tool can correctly export each individual face group and retain the individual names. For example, we can assign 3 different faces of our cube to vertex groups named A, B, and C. And if we click on Export All and include all settings, all named groups will be correctly transferred to DAZ Studio, while any ungrouped vertices will go to a default group. As you can see, you can now hide and unhide individual face groups in DAZ. Let's now move on to the management of multi-material. If we have a red cube in Blender, and we assign different materials to a mesh, the plugin will export each material group correctly in DAZ Studio inside the Surface tab. The Morphs channel can be easily exported alongside their min-max properties. So, for example, the setting Morph channel limits in Blender will transfer the same limitations to DAZ Studio. Keyframes of the morph that we have added under the Shape Keys window in Blender will be exported as well. The keyframes will be exported correctly without the need to bake animations before export. Lights and cameras can also be exported from Blender to DAZ. Standard points, sun, spots, area lights can all be exported easily by retaining a very similar color. The intensity setting in Blender will be converted into DAZ lumens to retain the same amount of illumination. The transformation keyframes of lights and cameras in Blender can be exported to DAZ without making any animations, so the user will be able to modify the keyframes in DAZ easily. One of the innovative features of our plugin is the capacity to export a skeletal mesh with correct transforms, scale, skinning, and rigging. As usual, clicking Export All will transfer a character mesh with rigging, transforms, etc. to DAZ Studio. Now you can see the magic of our tool, as each individual bone and node has been created automatically and can be individually selected and moved in DAZ. There is a unique feature that can massively expand the creative options in posing and animation in DAZ Studio. In fact, the transfer animation and the skeletal animation will all be exported correctly alongside the scale and rotation of the character. All keyframes will be exported separately, which means there is no need to add a keyframe for each frame and no need to make animations before exporting. In this way, all keyframes are available to edit in DAZ Studio. Please note that DAZ Studio does not have a Bezier curve at all, so there is an option to decide if we want to convert Bezier keyframes to linear or TCB. The conversion may take some time, depending on the number of keyframes, but the results will be very accurate. let's now cover bone scale. To squash or stretch a character, it is mandatory to export the bone scale. The plugin will export the scale key free keyframes as well. For example, we can change the scale under transforms in Blender, and then we can click on export all as usual. As you can see, the transformation will be retained in DAZ Studio. Now we can discuss another exciting and innovative function, which will allow you to export a complete scene with hundreds of objects from Blender to DAZ. You can export in one go all objects, cameras, lights, characters, transform animations, and keep working in a complex scene directly in DAZ. It is a good habit, however, to merge all objects into a new Blender file before exporting. It is very important to make sure that all materials are principled BSDF or PBR standard, as our tool does not support non-standard materials. If you do have non-standard materials in your scene in Blender, you should convert them to principled BDSF before proceeding with the export. Each object will be exported with the correct transform, scale, material, and hierarchy. One final function of our plugin is the capacity to bake materials. The tool can do a quick bake for principled BSDF materials that include some hue, saturation, color mix, brightness, and contrast, etc. However, for a more comprehensive bake, you may want to use other dedicated add-ons. We hope you enjoy using the Blender to DAZ tools for your project.